just to follow a brilliant speech from Senator Hoey, and I always say it's not about getting to the table, it's about shaping the agenda, it's about changing what's being discussed at the table. But I think your smash up the table altogether and repurpose it is taking it maybe the necessary step forward. And really, I think you're hearing, Minister, it is about power. You know, when we talk about it, it was women who did not have power but formed a union and insisted to take power that International Women's Day came from. And it is about challenging it. And I always think there was a great moment at one of the big UN events where different countries were speaking, it was on the Council status, you know, the things they were doing for women with various women. And I remember, I think it was Costa Rica who stood up. And instead of beginning with, you know, we've 3 or 4 things we've done for, you know, women, they said, well, here's what we've done to address the problem of patriarchy. Here's what we've done to address the problem that we have a huge systemic imbalance in power. And that's what it is. It is not about dealing solely with the symptoms, but about dealing with the core problem of power inequality. And that's, Minister, I think where we're at. It is a transformation. We're seeing that the world can totally change in response to COVID. We're seeing the world change in terms of conflict. And I think women are tired of seeing small, incremental, slight improvements while keeping business as usual effectively trucking along. And that's why I am also on the Gender Equality Committee that Senator Warfield spoke about. And that has a really strong mandate from citizens. And I think it's really important, I say this even directly to you in your department, Minister, to be clear, there needs to be referenda next year. And those referenda, the work on that, you know, we're not minding the issue and keeping it off the table for this next 9 months. We're working in parallel, and we expect the government to be producing and delivering a referendum next year, delivering crucial changes. And those crucial changes, I'm going to just take 2 of them to pull down as threads. One is that gender-neutral recognition of care. Taking out the women in the home clause, important, but also putting in a gender-neutral recognition of care and recognition of the state's responsibility to support care. That it's not just the invisible structure that keeps everything going, but in fact, and we've seen in COVID how much everything relies on it. And I do want to commend, I know that you have started work. You're starting from a low base, so you'll know that there's more that needs to be done in relation to childcare. Working conditions for those in childcare. I mean, I think we probably need a public childcare system, and that's indeed what the citizens looked for, but moving towards that. But also other care work that is systematically undervalued, and the carers who are not cared for, and in that, the student nurses is a huge issue. Looking at the report this morning in the Irish Times, applications, CAO applications, are down 27% in nursing. It's because it's undervalued. It's undervalued, it's under-respected, and in an Irish context it is undervalued, and on a global context you'll be aware that 2.6 million nurses wrote to the UN to point out the human rights violation against them as frontline health workers by the fact that we did not share the patent, that the EU blocked the sharing of the vaccine information in respect of COVID-19. That's 2.9 million nurses sending a message to us, which is one to remember as I look at the picture of Elizabeth Farrell that we have up in this chamber as a nurse who contributed, and alongside the Irish student nurses who are voting with their feet. This is a message that we need to focus on care. The other part is all families being recognised, and it is not a coincidence that we have 53% of homeless families in Ireland are families headed by a lone parent who is usually a woman. The highest levels of deprivation in the state, it is lone parent families usually headed by women. And the real test next year, let's make it a goal for the government this year and all of us this year, is if next year we have addressed the fact that lone parents, that women who have children are effectively penalised by the state still. They were systematically in the past, as you will be aware of, in terms of the mother and baby homes and the systematic discrimination. They still are. And that's why, Minister, the government also needs to listen to women when it comes to things like the National Maternity Hospital. And to say, it's not enough to say, we'll try and treat you a bit better, or we'll ask those in a voluntary trust linked to a religious group to treat you a little bit better. What people are saying is we want to own our maternity hospital. We want public health care. The women who are citizens of this state, in fact, a majority of citizens of this state, want a national maternity hospital that is theirs. Not simply because they've been treated badly and they want to be treated better, because they want the power relocated back to them, to women. That's where it needs to be. And all of that relocation of power, it was right through the citizens because they understood that it wasn't just a wish list. They said, for example, collective bargaining. The right to a collective bargaining is a gender equality issue so that women can use collective strength in unions. They pointed to gender budgeting. So we need to remember women, and women's voices need to be there when we decide about how money is allocated. And then lastly, I come, as others have, to the question of conflict. Talked about Ukraine, but we also need to remember the women starving in Yemen and in Afghanistan, the women who fought for a civil government in Sudan and didn't get the support that they needed, the women right around the world who are pushing. And now, at a time like this, women's voice and power is crucial. That's why 1325, that resolution that says, in any negotiations towards the end of conflict and the building of peace, women must be at the table. And that's where women's voices in rebuilding peace are important. And it's not okay that we see women's voices pushed to the margins, and indeed those voices of peace, which women have led, pushed to the margins. Those voices are crucial, and the women human rights defenders, including the environmental human rights defenders, who are again women, like Berta Cáceres, who lost their lives on that other front line, which is the battle against climate change, that their issues don't get pushed to the side and told, yet again, we need to wait because we're focusing our energies on business as usual and the same playbooks we've used before in terms of militarism. Thank you.
Thank you.